Hello, everyone, and welcome to Solving Friction and our third group call. This one is with the lovely Taz Hart, who is a presenting coach. And she's not only a presenting coach, she's one of the best. And she happened to be one of mine. And she's taken me from where I was to where I am now, and that big trajectory. So she's incredible, has a lot of great information, and I think this session is going to be fantastic. We've got about 30 minutes of talk, and then we're going to go into a Q&A afterwards. So thank you very much, everybody. And Taz, that's over to you. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stuart. And
You're
it's
very
so
welcome.
lovely to be here.
I'm glad
So,
you came.
what I want to start by saying, sorry, Stuart,
I said, I'm glad you came. Thank you.
and on time. So,
Yes.
funny little story. I thought it was starting in an hour because we just recently shifted time zones again. And so, but I'm here, which is really good. Good thing I checked in because
It
that's what
was.
a real presenter does. They always check in just to make sure that everything is running smoothly.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Stuart, for inviting me here today and creating space for me to talk to your members in your wonderful community that you've built out. And of course, well done to everybody who's here today because it takes time and you've had probably a long day, you've probably been at work today, and here you are listening to me hopefully helping you with some really lovely information that you can use to infuse your presentations and the way in which you show up every single day. Now, the topic of the day, of course, is that presence is the real presentation. And I thought that would be a really good topic for today because I see so many people sort of falling in that trap of, oh, if I create a really fancy presentation and my slide deck looks amazing and I say all the right things, then I'll be okay. And everybody will think I'm really good at what I'm doing. And while sometimes, of course, that works perfectly fine for those that it works for, my job as a coach in presenting is to help people to reach their most authentic selves and to really step into what it is they have to say, how they want to say it, and most importantly, how they want people to feel after they have said it. And that for me has always been sort of the distinguishing difference between an average presenter and someone who truly shows up and holds the space. Now, this session is not just going to be me yapping on and on. For those of you who do know me, like Stuart and Andre, for example, I love to get things engaged. I like to get you engaged. I like to ask the right questions. So, we will be doing a little bit of that. So, make sure you have a book or pen or paper to write on, just so that you can make some notes. Of course, you're at your computer, so you can just open up a notes pad or a Word document to make some notes. So, who am I? My name is Taz Hart, as Stuart has so lovely introduced me, and I am a presentation coach. I have been doing this for the last decade. I've trained extensively under the wonderful, incredible Mr. David J.P. Phillips. If you don't know who that is, please go and look him up. And I have a very special interest in voice and also presence and energy. Because as you've heard already, it's not just about the fancy content, it's about how you show up as yourself, how you embody, and I think that's a very important word, embody your message, embody the way in which you want people to experience you. So we're going to start off with some really, really interesting questions that I hope will help to activate your awareness of what it actually means to be present. And before we do that, I want you to just write in the chat, do you know or can you tell me what, in your opinion, is presence? How is that defined? what are some of the words that sort of pop up for you when you think about being present or having presence? I've never really used the school platform for these online calls, so now I need to find the chat button. It's quite an interesting. Oh, there we go.
On the far
So
right.
Andre has said, I see it. I see it. Thank you, Stuart. So Andre has written being in the moment. Yes. And I can see Ben has written engagement and connection. So what does that mean? What does it mean to be in the moment, Andre?
Well, this is present for me, so not in the past, not in the future, so exactly where you are now.
So in other words, focusing on what is in front of you,
Yes.
right? And really examining or becoming aware of who am I looking at? Is it one person? Is it a group of people? Is it a big audience? And really then asking yourself the right questions and activating what is it that I need to be doing right now in order to truly be in this moment? And I love defining it like that because it goes beyond, the usual definitions of what people think presence should be, and it starts to tap into how do you understand presence? What does it mean to you? Because each of us are different. Each of us hold a different view of the world, a different understanding of the world. We've experienced life in different ways. And so you'll often hear people say, one of the loveliest skills you can have is to be present and authentic. So then I would ask you the next question: what is authenticity? How is that defined? Oh, I love it when you're thinking. You make very interesting faces when you're thinking. Stuart has written truth. Any other contributions? Authentic best face. Can you just explain what you mean?
We all like to make a good impression, and that's the first thing I thought of.
Mm. So being authentic is about making a good impression.
Well, it depends which side, what I'm going for, too. That's the other thing. If I'm with
Who
my
are you dealing?
friends, that's one thing. And if I'm with you, I'm going to be putting my best foot and best words forward.
So it's just careful consideration, activating that awareness of your target or your audience, and making sure that you are then fulfilling that loop and what is required from that specific space. Does
Yes,
that define authenticity then?
possibly.
It certainly leans into it. It contributes to it. Thank you so much. What is your full name?
I go by the initials J period, R period, and then my last name. J-
Rossman.
yes.
J.R. Rossman. So do I call you J.R.?
Very good. Yes.
That's lovely. I love that. It's got a little bit of an edge to it. Thank you so much for your contribution, JR.
You're
All
welcome.
right. So now we have explored, just thought a little bit about what is presence and what is authenticity. And let me just see, Ben has written something as well. Intentions do transpire in the words being said. Ooh, that's very poetic. Are you a writer? So, authenticity means being transparent with those intentions. Yes. And I love these answers because you are all leaning into the different layers that make up our presence. So, our presence is the way in which we're speaking, the way in which we're thinking, what it is we want to get out of our experience in whichever engagement we find ourselves in. It's our pace, it's our eye contact, it's the way in which we say things, tone. Presence is multifaceted and has various layers. So I'm going to just pop over some questions for you, and I'll read through them very quickly, and then I'll just paste them into the chat field as well. And this is meant to really just sort of further activate your awareness of what it means to be present. So the first question is, when you're about to speak in a meeting or do a presentation, I want you to consider what happens in your body. I want you to ask the question, do you speed up or are you holding back? Do you feel grounded or slightly rushed? I also want you to ask, where does your attention go? Is it going towards your message or to yourself? And then finally, are you trying to connect or are you trying to get it right? Stuart, are you able to set a timer for me?
Yeah, I can do that. How long do you need?
Amazing. So we're going to do just a 2-minute timer, and I'm going to pop into the chat those questions so that you can use that as a guide for your reflection. It's too long. So let's do this. We are going to about to present. Stuart, I'll tell you when you can start. Okay, I'm almost there.
Sure.
All right. So there are the 5 questions. Now, fair warning, don't spend too much time. Just very quick notes. And of course, you can copy and paste this into a document and reflect on it even more when we are done with the session. Stuart, you can start the timer for me.
It started.
Amazing. Thank you.
Last 15 seconds. Time's up.
Amazing. Thank you, Stuart. So now I just want a quick 30-second share. Anybody like to share what that was like? Did anything pop up while you were reflecting? Can anybody share what happens in your body when you're about to present?
I get anxious.
You get anxious. And does that show up physically at all?
Just in my breathing, and then I learn to breathe it out, calm it.
Good. And any sort of like fidgeting or sweaty palms or anything like that?
No, quite dry.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for sharing. Ben, what happens to you? Does anything happen in your body?
So generally, I've learned that I'm not normal. From that, I don't mind presenting. I quite enjoy it. I'd rather get on the stage in front of people than network with them a lot of the time. I get much more nervous about networking than I do about presenting.
Interesting.
So yes, I'm. People have told me that's not necessarily their experience.
Yeah, you're probably just being too hard on yourself. So
Always.
could you sort of, do you have a sort of hint as to why that is?
I think to an extent I've been lucky to present on things that I know and understand. So that definitely, I feel much more comfortable presenting on that rather than necessarily having to do like an improv session with a random deck behind me. So
Yeah.
that's always helped. And yeah, I suppose that's my initial reflection on it.
That's a really, really good reflection, because it automatically makes me think, so preparation is important, or at least feeling like you know what it is that you need to be talking about helps a great deal when it comes to those sort of interactions.
Yeah, I don't like writing down what I'm going to say, but if I know where I'm going, I tend to feel
So
comfortable with
you
it.
have a good sort of feeling of what is expected. And I imagine when you're networking, you're meeting random people who you don't know, and you don't necessarily know what kind of personality they might have and how they might show up. And people are generally quite interesting, I find. So I can completely relate to that. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, we're going to move into sort of the main section of this. And what I've done today is I've prepped for you 3 sort of focus areas that you can use when thinking about presence. You've already engaged with some meaningful questions. Don't forget to copy those over. And I want you to use that and sort of flip the script. So instead of focusing on yourself, I want you to focus on, have you ever met anybody who has impressed you with their presence? Have you ever met someone who really just sort of impacted your energy when they've engaged with you? And then start to dismantle that and ask yourself, why did I feel that way? Maybe they made you feel bad. Maybe they made you feel negatively. Ask the right questions so that you can find the solutions, and like Ben has shared with us, feel more prepared to take on those different kinds of interactions, because there's great learning in the awareness. So what we're going to do now is we are going to look at, or essentially ask the question, so what is presence exactly? And I've thought about this quite carefully. And the truth is, there is no one set definition. But I like to look at it through 3 lenses. And perhaps your lenses will shift slightly. And I hope that you will. I hope that you will leave this session asking yourself, that was really interesting what Taz shared. And how can I sort of adapt that to my world, to my own insights and the ways in which I move through the world? So my 3 lenses are as follows. The first lens is going to be all about you, your state. I call it your state, right? So how is it that you're showing up? What is it that you essentially are feeling when you show up in these spaces? And I'm going to use Ben again as an example, because you've very clearly sort of identified how you're showing up when you are going to be on stage in front of everybody, when you're in control, and how you show up when you're in front of a random person who you're now meant to network with and find some sort of middle ground so that you can connect. So the ways in which we show up, and JR has also shared a lovely point about anxiety and feeling anxious. How we feel is directly creating space between who we can be in our presence and who we struggle to be because we're feeling different things about different situations. So what's the point there? The point is, start to get to know how you're showing up. Start to truly take a look at, what am I feeling when I'm speaking to people? What are some of the challenges I'm experiencing? And how can I start to dismantle that, break it down, and then build it up again? So the first lens is state. We'll call it state. You can call it anything you like as long as you understand, as long as you step into it. The second lens is going to be signal. And signal is very interesting. What are you showing the people you are engaging with? What are you showing them? Are you showing them a smile? Are you showing them resistance? Are you confident? Are you arrogant? Do you have a certain look on your face that sort of makes people think you're unapproachable? What are you showing people? What are you signaling to them so that they are essentially calculating how they feel about you? And this, of course, is a very interesting lens because it comes down to not just body language, but it comes down to, how do you walk into a room? How do you show up? Do you wear a lovely big flower on your jacket because, people love that? What is it that's uniquely you? And how are you signaling who you are before you even open up your mouth? I also want to touch on, I've already mentioned body language, but under this sort of umbrella of body language comes things like posture, eye contact, a firm handshake. All of these things are very simple things, yet so many people fail to think about it before they enter a room or a conversation. So it's all about signal. So far, we've looked at state, which is all about you and the way in which you show up. We've looked at signal. What is it that you want people to see? What are you showing your audience? And then the final one is all about intention. So what is the intention behind the way that you're showing up? For example, if I walk into a room really angry, irritated, is that going to show in my body language? Yes. And I'm looking at all of you, your cameras, so you can nod your head if you agree, or shake, or like, no, Taz, I don't agree with you. I'd love that. So if I'm angry, is it going to show up in my body language? Yes. Is it going to show up in my tone, the way that I speak?
Possible.
Maybe I say, it's good. Because maybe I'll be like, hey, everybody. Just like irritated, edgy. I might walk differently. Correct?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Aha, I like you, JR, because you're like, not necessarily. We are all different. That ties into what I said earlier. We are all different. And so it's your responsibility to truly examine, what are these three lenses for me, And how am I showing up for my audience? What am I saying before I'm even saying anything? So, let's recap. The 3 lenses I've presented to you today in order to sort of contain this idea of presence is state, signal, and intention. And as long as you're working in those 3 areas and you're considering carefully, along with, of course, building out your content, deciding which words you want to use, planning all the different things, the layers, the slide decks, the outfit, whatever it may be, as long as you're considering these 3 lenses, you're starting to water your presence garden, if we can call it that. But you have to do the work. You have to reflect on it. I see this far too often where people don't do the necessary consideration of how am I showing up? How do people feel when I talk to them? Have you ever asked anybody how they feel? And perhaps that's a small bit of homework that I'm going to leave with you today is go out, pick 3 to 5 people in your life, a family member, 1 or 2 colleagues, perhaps an acquaintance, and ask them that question. How do you experience me when I speak to you? What is the impression you're getting? I would bet a lot of money that some of those answers may surprise you. So that's your homework for today. The final point I want to make touches on this whole idea of pressure. And I decided to share this today because I feel like it goes hand in hand with Stuart's point about friction, right? When we are engaging, when we are showing up for people, the different audiences that we find ourselves dealing with on a daily basis, our presence matters. The way in which we show up matters. But often there is a pressure that we feel, whether that's anxiety or just not feeling like we are quite enough, feeling like, who am I to be speaking about this? Or who am I to be speaking up? And of course, this leans into state, it leans into mindset, it leans into understanding who you are when you are communicating, the various messages that you communicate on a daily basis. And at the end of it all, that overflows into both your personal and professional life. So I leave you with this. Your presence speaks long before your words do. So you owe it to yourself to consider it and to do some work so that you can show up more meaningfully for everybody that you meet. All right. Any questions?
Thank you, Taz. That was a lovely session. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you. It went really quickly.
It did. It did. It was. It's always do though, don't we? When you're actually engaged and you're enjoying the session, it's they always run fairly quickly. But it was good.
Yeah. I
I
could
I
talk
have a
about for
question.
days.
Go ahead, Maurizio.
Yes.
More like considering, well, I'm Italian, probably you can hear it, and I did a lot of presentations across Europe. So if I'm in Italy, they expect some sort of gestures. We talk a lot with our hands. In other parts of Europe, maybe Scandinavia or maybe in the UK, it's less that. How would so it's very much cultural, right?
Yes.
To what extent would that impact my message? Do you think?
Great
I
question.
think that, and it is a great question. Really, really good question.
Yeah.
if you're speaking to different audiences, all across the world, it is your responsibility to do the research and to ask the question, who am I speaking to? What is it that they need to be getting out of this? And what are some of the cultural sensitivities that may appear? So, what I would suggest for you is to have different versions of your presentation. If that's what you're doing, if you're traveling quite a bit and you're dealing with different audiences, prepare or anticipate how you are going to deal with those different audiences so that you show up in a way that is balanced and congruent to that space. And of course, you can do this in a number of ways. You can firstly adapt the words that you're using. Perhaps there would be some references to that region that would be relevant. And we could use comedians in this way as an example. Comedians travel all over the world, and before they go on stage, they do research about what is relevant for that area. And they'll usually poke fun at it, make a joke about it, or compliment the audience, depending on where they are in their presentation. Does that make sense, Maurizio?
Yes, it does. Especially when you're not presenting just in English. Because I'm fortunate enough to have learned, some other languages. It's not just the words. It's more like how you present, the ideas that are on the screen. Whether sometimes, I had presentations written in English on a slide, but then I'm presenting in Spanish. So and obviously, the audience is very much aware of those words. They do know, because it's all about technical languages and technical terms. But again, it very much depends on how you are conveying the message to the audience. And yeah, the joke idea, maybe like a light joke at the very beginning of the presentation might kind of get the audience to be a bit more receptive to whatever you are trying to present.
Yeah. You're going to have to become a chameleon and adapt your colors to the different audiences. There's no, cool trick for this other than actually doing the prep and learning to anticipate who you're dealing with, how you're going to say what you need to say, and if you need to dial down or dial up on your gestures, your body language, your facial expressions, and so on.
So one thing that I picked up from
Mm.
my training was that functional gestures are a very great way of using your hands. And rather than just doing this with your hands or waving your hands around, actually make them do what you want to do. So if you want to say a bullet point, put a bullet point out. Or if you want to say,
Yeah.
it's going up, go up. Or 3 or 5. Actually use your hands to tell the story. And
Mhm.
that's been something I've been working on a lot over the last few years.
Yes, exactly that. Also, Stuart, to add on to that, you remember when you first started learning how to use gestures? They were kind of like too much or all over the place. I'm not speaking just specifically about you. This is just a general thing that happens. And then you sort of need to start activating your awareness of, how do I balance this out? Like cooking a meal. I don't want to add too much spice. I don't want to make this too heavy on the palate. I want this to be a well balanced meal. So you start to plan and anticipate where you would use a gesture in order to support the point that you are making at any given place in your presentation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. That's very important. And I think awareness again comes into the forefront. You have to become aware of so many different layers of things that's happening while you're in this process of communicating, presenting, putting together a slide deck, and so on. I've just realized something, and I think I'm going to get you all to do it, is that all of you, except Stuart and Andre a little bit, you're not looking at the camera. And so I want you to become aware of that right now for me. Just take a moment to ask yourself, where on earth is my camera? Is it over there? Is it over there? Or is it over there? Yes. Maurizio, can I see you looking at me? Ah, there you are. A little bit, sort of. So this, of course, is very challenging because when you're looking at the camera, you can't see everybody else. And so what I recommend is that you find a way to set things up that your camera is as close to your screen as possible. And while you're speaking, you're looking at the camera. And when you're listening, you can be looking at the participants. And of course, this is a valid point for today's topic because we're talking about presence. If you were doing this face-to-face, you'd be looking at the person and respectfully so, maintaining eye contact throughout the engagement, and then, of course, breaking that when the time is right. So always make sure that if you're doing any online engagements to make eye contact and look at your camera. That makes a huge difference for presence.
It really does. And this was one of the real tricks that I found out that was the really good thing for online stuff was actually looking at the camera. And to make it easier, I got myself an Elgato prompter. It was a couple £100, and it's the best thing that I've ever bought for this office.
Yeah.
Because I can do this. I can look straight in the eye, and I can see you.
It's like intense. Like, hey, how you doing? All right. Any questions? Any other questions? Hello, John. Oh my goodness.
Oh, John's come in. Hi, John. How you doing?
John, he arrived a little bit late, but he's here with us all.
So I've got one question. What are the three sort of worst things, or what are the three things that you consider would be the most negative for presence? What should they avoid?
I think the top three, number one is going to be the lack of eye contact. I find that this happens a lot. What is very interesting, though, is that when people are not making eye contact, it's usually not coming from a bad place. It's usually coming from a place of shyness or feeling a little bit uncomfortable or just feeling like they aren't in, their space. And so they tend to look away and sort of fidget. And I find that it's then my responsibility, and this is all about awareness again, and how you walk into a room and how you observe other people. When you see someone is a little bit uncomfortable, find a way to break that barrier. Say to them something that can help them to connect with you, to feel like, actually, maybe this isn't as awkward as I think it is. And of course, this is easier said than done. But there are so many ways that you can do that to help open up the space when you are engaging with people. So that's number one, eye contact or lack thereof. Number two is going to be just not preparing for the engagement. And when I say preparation, I don't mean extensive amounts of prep. I just mean familiarize yourself with the space. Familiarize yourself with where's the entrance? Where's the exit? Is there any information I need to know about the people who are going to be in attendance? Can I read up for a couple of minutes just about the organization hosting the event? Maybe you're going on a date. Do some research about engaging questions that you can ask. Be mindful about how you show up. Maybe you're doing a really important business meeting. You're going to research the person you're meeting. You're going to ask yourself, what is it that I want to get out of this meeting? You're going to anticipate what is the biggest mistake I can make here today and what is the best outcome of this meeting. And that kind of preparation infuses your spirit and shows up in your confidence. It shows up in the way that you engage and speak and the word you're using, because you've researched it, you've prepared for it. So now you go into the space knowing exactly what you have to say, knowing exactly how you need to behave and what you need to do in order to achieve the desired outcome. And then I think the third point is really performance. And this is a big one. A lot of people are performing. They think they need to impress. It needs to be an elaborate performance when I go out there. When really, you just need to show up as yourself. So if you arrive as yourself, you have your prep ready and done, you've done your research, you know exactly what you're dealing with, the spaces that you're navigating, the people that you're engaging with, and you show up honestly as yourself. And this is easy if you answer those questions I gave you in the beginning, because now you're connecting with your message, you're connecting with your purpose for this meeting, for this presentation, whatever it may be. Less performing and more showing up as yourself. So to summarize, lack of eye contact. Number 2, preparation. And number 3, stop performing.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for that great question.
You're welcome. Any other good questions, or great questions, or bad questions?
I
Go ahead, Ben.
have one. If that's what's your take on slides, PowerPoints, Google Slide, whatever? Like, what's the place for them? Where do they add? Where do they take away? And do you sort of advise in that aspect, or do you keep it more to the aspects you talked about today?
I personally feel like slides are not required. However, certain moments do require them, especially if you're, for example, you are in a boardroom meeting and you need to share certain information. Then slide decks are necessary. Or perhaps you're delivering a really cool presentation that requires a powerful image or a visual to support your idea. Then slides are absolutely amazing. However, and I'll say this, and Stuart's going to smile, and Andre and John as well, you are the presentation first. You are the main attraction, and your slides are just a supplement to that journey. So, I find what's very interesting about your question, Ben, is that I often find people hide behind the slide. They think that if they overload it with enough information and make it look really cool with floating images, then people are not going to notice how nervous or unprepared or uncomfortable they are standing up there. And so it's about that wonderful balance and really strategizing around, what do I need to show in these slides? And is it landing in the way that I hope, or is it overwhelming the audience?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's interesting your take on performance. I'm lucky that I have a lot of friends who are artists. So the musician, or they work in the theater, actors. So they all give me tips, and they always said, the performance, you are the person who's performing on stage. Whatever you do, even now with my hands, even though I don't need to use my hands, I could stay like this. You are performing, you are sending a message, and in that message, the performance is really important because people would either understand it or like it, don't like it, and that. So it's interesting your take on performance itself. Would you add anything to this?
Yes, I think you've made a very, very valid point. And this is interesting because, again, our perception of a word often determines the way in which we show up authentically. And so for you, performance is sort of contained within this beautiful, creative, expressive space. My understanding of performance, and neither is correct or incorrect, is more of having an ego and sort of being overly embellished in a space in order to show dominance, for example. So I'll give you an example, Maurizio. I went to a networking event the other day and everybody introduced themselves to the group. And there was this one lady who stood up and she very clearly used her entire body to exert her presence in the space. So she made herself really big. She spoke in this loud, sort of boisterous voice, which was clearly not her voice. And she went on and on about all of her accolades and the awards that she had won and the amazing things that she could do for the room. And everybody was smiling and be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Now, that's very true. It is amazing. However, very few people, none at all, were able to connect with her because she was performing. She wasn't showing us who she really was. There was no vulnerability, there was no honesty. And so people, while being incredibly impressed, unfortunately, didn't approach her after. She made no meaningful connections and she left the space disconnected. So when I speak about performance, I lean into sort of that version of it. Your version, however, is lovely because I'm in love with that kind of performance where we step into a different sort of state almost so that we can show up in a way that is congruent for the people that we're speaking to. So thank you for sharing that because I think I need to think about the word I use when I explain that point.
How about, rather than performance, performative?
Uh-huh. That's good. That's really good, Stuart.
They're trying to put on a face or an act. That's performative rather than
Yeah.
performance as in being good at something. Because if
Yes.
everyone gets that annual performance review, that's how well you've done on the task that you are actually trying to do. That's a performance.
Yeah.
So performative is different to me.
Yes. It's a very good distinction. Yeah. Really good question, Maurizio.
It was.
Thank you. Taking notes right now.
Yeah. And there's always this like fine line between impressing someone and wanting to impress someone. It's two different worlds. And I feel like we need to discuss more and really look deeper at what is it that's defining those spaces. Because again, there's a huge difference between impressing someone naturally in a way that just flows and wanting to, being desperate to impress someone.
A good example of this is Speaker X. There's 3 of us on this call that have just done that. And we did that because we wanted to share our unique message that we've got for the world. It wasn't performative. It was us sharing that message in the best possible way that we could. And it wasn't about being the best. It was about giving that message well and For me, that was not performative at all. That was performance.
Yeah. And am I correct in saying I would assume that there was sort of a process building up to that final moment? And as part of that process, you were required to do a lot of introspection, some mindset work, some reflection on how you show up, and so on.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a 6-week process, and we spent 4 hours on a Friday every week of that 6 weeks. And then on top of that, we did our own stuff on the side as well. And it was a
Yeah.
really intricate and in-depth process. I spent the entire 6 weeks when I wasn't working doing that, and it was great. But it wasn't performative. It was because I had something that I wanted to do and wanted to share.
Yeah, it was meaningful. And may I
Absolutely.
just add, it's been such a joy to watch that recording of you, because it's been what an incredible transformation. And I hope that you're very proud of that.
I am. Thank you very much. It's been a long journey, 3 years.
Yeah.
But there's
And
2
a
other
journey
people
that
on this
will
call as well.
continue.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm still learning, and I'm going to be learning for many, many years.
Yeah.
But there's also 2
I
other guys
see.
on this call that have done the same thing, and they did amazing as well.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Of course, John's presentation was just absolutely gorgeous, layered with all kinds of interesting things, from role play to just making some meaningful points. With you, Stuart, what was really lovely to see was how you trusted yourself. Like, there was just this calm energy around you. And I love when you're sort of rubbing your hands together and the pausing between that. Incredible. But let me not analyze you in this session.
JR's got a
Really,
question.
really. Yes.
Thank you very much, Taz. Go ahead,
You're
JR.
welcome.
I put it in message. How long should a self-introduction be in, let's say we're not doing presentations on a stage or sales pitch, but we're in a networking room. In the next few months, I'll be planning a virtual conversational space. And I don't want to overpower with whatever I'm supposed to be good at, except for the fact of inviting people to come and chit chat. So I was just
Yeah.
wondering, what kind of self introduction does one present?
So the first important point is that it depends on the space. You know, you may find yourself at a networking event where they say to you, you have 60 seconds to present what you do. And then you might find yourself at a networking event where they say you have 10 seconds to present what you do. So the answer to this is that you need to have different versions of it. You need to be so well versed in explaining what you do that you can do it in 10 seconds or 10 minutes. And then you will adapt that to the audience, to the space. And as a presenter, you're now required to feel your way and really just make a very quick assessment. What do I need to do here, and how am I going to do it so that it lands in a way that they know what I do, but also that they feel you?
Feel like an empathy.
Yes. So the thing about these introductions is that they are riddled with credibility, right? So I studied at this university and I've done X amount of years in this, but very few of them are remembered for that same reason. So what you want is to make an impact. What you want is to make them feel something so that they remember you. I was teaching this in a pitching class the other day, and what I typically do, you know, if I have very little time, I have a formula that I use. So the first sort of portion of this formula is, have you ever? The second one is, I help. And the third one is, so that. So for example, have you ever been terrified of speaking in front of large groups of people? I help. Let's say, what do you do, JR?
Oh, at present, I double as a caregiver and a group manager.
All right, so I help group managers to gain the confidence they need in order to truly engage the room and connect meaningfully so that they can finally overcome their fear of speaking. For example, I sucked that out of my thumb. So
Much better.
using a formula really helps. However, you need to be planning and you need to be thinking about, what does my 60-second introduction look like? And what does my 10-minute introduction look like? Because you will find yourself in different situations that require different approaches.
Well, generally, I do what I've been told in job classes. Basically, you have less than 2 minutes to introduce yourself to a prospective employer.
Mm. And then, do you have a formula in your head?
Basically, you write it out and you practice it till it's absolutely memorized. But my problem
Mm.
is I have a tendency to change the subject.
You kind, because you're so thoughtful, isn't it? You're thoughtful and you want to say what matters, and then you end up saying potentially too much.
You take, let's say, I don't know how your job fairs are versus here in my country, US, but we go to each table and each one is might be selling there basically for the defense or for the business or John Q public. And even though you have learned a little bit about each of them, you probably get them all. Well, I would get them mixed up. So I look at their swag and I present myself according to their swag. Swag, of course, being the things they give to me for being at their table for so long. Um, but yeah, I'm pitching for employment and what I do in my transferable skills that I would pitch to each table depending on the table. So yes, I never can remember a standard 2 minute speech like I'm supposed to. So
Mm. And that's okay. I think that's more than okay. What could be helpful for you then is just to have sort of some sweet tricks in your basket, if that makes sense. So you can sort of lean into different elements according to who you're speaking to at the table. So, for example, you might have a funny story you want to add in, or you might have a cool metaphor you want to use to express how you deal with certain problems. So, just having sort of a refined list of things that you can easily move into your puzzle, so like different puzzle pieces, that you can create a different picture for different tables or audiences.
thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah.
Well,
Any more
we are at
questions?
time. I
Nothing?
was going to ask, is there any more questions before we head off? We take one last question. No, no more questions. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Taz, for this wonderful session. It's been great to have you here, and thank you for giving us your time and this wonderful session. As we've had a lot of great questions, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us. This has been really good. Very much enjoyed it, and I hope you come to more of these sessions in the future. It's been great.
Thank
Thank you
you
very
so
much.
much, Stuart. Thank you, everyone. Lovely to meet you this evening.
Thank you, guys. That was